The product sample project includes a user-defined function called getProductList, and it's defined right there. This returns a set of product names in alphabetical order. Okay, so we have the SQL function attribute, and this defines a table with a single string field called product name. And then the function returns an IEnumerable object, which here is going to be an array. In a real function, you probably get user input or read a table to get the list, but I'm just using a static list, just to keep the code very simple. An important thing to notice here is that in this version of the function, all of the strings are in alphabetical order. All right, then there's another version of pretty much the same method called getProductList unordered. The only difference is that it uses a string array, but the strings here are not in alphabetical order. One thing that is going to make a difference is that the first two items are in alphabetical order. So if you're just reading these strings, you'll say, okay, ML, and then T, okay, that follows alphabetically after that, but then the alphabetical order is broken at the third place. Okay, so that's going to become important later. Okay, the one other little piece of code here is the fillRow method, and I need to specify a fillRow method name, and that provides the name of that method, because that's the method that SQL Server is going to call in order to retrieve a product name from the list. Okay, because this is a table-valued function. Okay, now I'm not going to deploy this project using Visual Studio. The reason is that in order to work with ordered table-valued functions, you have to set a property in the transact SQL, and Visual Studio doesn't support that property. Okay, so I have to use the create function and write the code myself. All right, but I will go ahead and build this. And I successfully built, so we have a DLL. Now I'll go back over to Management Studio and the Advanced SQL CLR script file. I'm going to use tempdb for this. And then I'm going to create the assembly. Hopefully that assembly is correct. It should be, or that path is correct. There we go. Okay, so the assembly now exists within this tempdb database. All right, then as usual, I need to execute the create function statement in order to create the function within the database. And so I do that, and I first create the function for getProductsUnordered. This returns a table with a single field, product name, of nvarchar50. And then it refers to the external name. Okay, so I'll go ahead and create that code. And now we can test that and see that we get a record set back that takes that unordered list that is returned, and I can use an order by clause on that select statement, and so now we have them in sorted order. Okay, so good so far. We have a function that works. So now what I'm going to do is create a function for that other method, the getProductsOrderedList. So this is the ordered strings. When I define the function in the database, I can notify SQL Server that the results are already ordered and by what field they're ordered by. We only have one field in the results that are returned, product name, so that's a little bit redundant, but so be it. So again, it's within the create function statement, define the function name as it's going to be used within SQL Server. Once again, returns that table, and here's that order clause. So again, this is not telling SQL Server to sort the items by product name. It's telling SQL Server that they're already sorted in that order. And then I have the external clause here to identify which function I want to execute. Okay, so at this point, when I execute this code, scroll up a little bit, I now have two functions within the database that execute the same method within the SQL CLR code. All right, and so now I can test that and execute in the same way, and I get the exact same results. All right, so nothing really all that exciting so far. Where you see the difference is in the execution plans that SQL Server uses to run those select statements. So if I come down here and I highlight these two statements, I can come up here to Query and display the estimated execution plan. Expand that a little bit. And you can see that the execution plans are pretty different. The biggest thing is that there's an enormous difference in the efficiency of these two plans. The one for this unordered list, this is the one where I didn't tell SQL Server that the strings were already sorted, takes 92% of the relative cost of these two queries. And the main reason is because of this sort step right here. That's a whopping 96% of this overall execution plan, and it turns out to be very slow, and so that accounts for the bulk of that 92%. This execution plan, again, this is for the version of the function where I told SQL Server that the products were already sorted, looks like it has more steps, but they're a much lighter touch. It doesn't have to sort. Sorting is almost always a very processor-intensive operation. And the result is that the second execution plan is far more efficient. And one of the tasks here is this assert task. SQL Server uses that task to verify that the results returned from the function are in fact sorted. All right, so now let's take a look and see what happens when you lie to SQL Server. Okay, so here I'm going to create yet another version of the method. But this time, this is going to be linked to that get product list unordered. So this is the version of the method that first defined here where the strings are not in alphabetical order. Up to now, I've only been using this method right here. Okay, so the only difference is that I'm linking it to this different function. But I'm telling SQL Server that the strings are in alphabetical order. So I'll go ahead and create that. Okay. And I'll execute this code. So this order by clause doesn't make any difference whatsoever. I'm going to attempt to execute this method, and SQL Server is going to expect the products to be listed in alphabetical order. But I lied to SQL Server, and SQL Server doesn't like that. So what this message here says is that the order of the data in the stream doesn't conform to the order hint specified for the CLR TVF get products not ordered. The order of the data must match the order specified in the order hint for a CLR TVF, table valued function. Update the order hint to reflect the order in which the input data is ordered, or update the CLR TVF to match the order specified in the order hint. Another one of those marvelous SQL Server errors that tell you in almost way too many words what exactly the problem is. But what's interesting here is that we do in fact get some results back. So we got that first item and the second item. And now you see why I pointed out that the first two items were in alphabetical order. It read the data from the function, processed it, read the next string, saw that, okay, that's in the right order, so I'm going to output that, and so it sent that to the result set. But then it got to the third item, again back here, the internal lock washer 8, which is not in order. It saw that I violated or I lied to it, and that's when it threw this message. So what actually happened is that assert task in the execution plan caught the problem and stopped execution. The moral of this story is that you should always create UDFs with the order clause if the results are already ordered. And then you benefit from the far more efficient execution plan. But never, ever lie to SQL Server. It won't let you get away with it anyway.